You ever been in a moment where someone hurt you deeply and everything in your body said, react, respond, defend, prove? Yeah, me too. There's something so human about wanting to explain ourselves, especially when someone misunderstands us, disrespects us, or downright uses us. Our instinct says, say something, make them see who you are. And here's the truth, reacting is a trap, and silence, when chosen with intention, is a power move, not for ego, but for peace. In 2025, we are not wasting energy on people committed to misunderstanding us. You don't have to slam doors. You don't have to send final messages, long explanations, or angry voice notes. You don't have to perform your boundaries for anyone. Cutting someone off silently doesn't mean you're bitter. It means you're done performing. You're choosing your wholeness over their chaos. And there's a calm power in saying nothing and walking away without warning, without revenge, without noise. It says, I know my worth and I don't need to shout it to make it real. But let me be clear, this isn't about being cold. This isn't about ghosting or avoiding accountability. This is about reclaiming your emotional budget. Who are you constantly explaining yourself to? Who keeps pulling you into conflict disguised as connection? If it costs your peace, it's too expensive in 2025. Silence, when rooted in self-respect, becomes your soft armor. It's not passive. It's not petty. It's power without the performance. Because not everyone deserves access to you, especially when they've shown they don't value what you bring. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for you is to stop showing up where you're constantly shrinking. So here's your permission. You don't have to react. You don't have to respond. You don't even have to explain. Let them off silently, clearly, cleanly, and then walk forward, head high, heart intact, energy unbothered. Because in 2025, peace isn't a luxury, it's your new standard. Would you like a shorter version of this speech for social media or a quote-style summary? Silence isn't weakness, it's strength with boundaries. We live in a world that often confuses silence with surrender. If you're not defending yourself, if you're not speaking up, if you're not reacting, then you must be losing, you must be scared, you must be weak. But here's the truth that it doesn't get enough airtime. Silence, when rooted in clarity, is one of the loudest declarations of self-worth. Let me say that again. When your silence is grounded in self-respect and not avoidance, it becomes a boundary, a living, breathing boundary that doesn't need to be explained, defended, or broadcasted to be valid. There's a kind of strength that doesn't raise its voice, it doesn't send the last text, it doesn't chase closure, it just knows, deep in the gut, when enough is enough. That kind of silence, it's not passive, it's not weak, it's not cowardly, it's disciplined. It takes far more courage to sit with discomfort, to resist the urge to retaliate, to choose the high road, not because you're afraid to fight, but because you're wise enough to walk away. We've been conditioned to believe that boundaries require big speeches or emotional outbursts, but the healthiest boundaries often come with no announcement at all. They come with a shift in energy, a door that closes quietly, a decision made in solitude and followed through with conviction. That's what real strength looks like. Choosing silence not to suppress your truth, but to preserve your peace. When someone keeps crossing lines, testing your patience, draining your energy, you don't owe them a dramatic exit. You owe yourself the dignity of disengagement. You are allowed to outgrow relationships in silence. You are allowed to protect your spirit without putting it on trial. And you are especially allowed to prioritize your healing, even if that means someone else feels confused by your absence. Because silence doesn't always mean there's nothing to say. Sometimes it means I've said it all before and now I'm saying it with my absence. So if you've been wrestling with the guilt of stepping back without a long explanation, hear this loud and clear. Silence isn't weakness, it's strength. And it's your boundary, beautifully enforced without a single word. Let's get real. When someone presses our buttons, especially someone who knows exactly where they are, our instinct is to react, defend ourselves, prove our point, maybe even hurt them back. because we think reacting means reclaiming control. But more often than not, reacting is how we quietly hand over our power. Think about it. When you react to someone who thrives on chaos, you're stepping onto their stage. You're dancing to their tune. You're giving them the satisfaction of knowing they still have access to you, your emotions, your peace, your attention. Not everyone who provokes you is looking for understanding. Some people poke at you just to see if you'll break. And the moment you snap, they win. Not because you're wrong, but because you're now playing a game you never signed up for. Here's the hard truth. Not everyone deserves a reaction. That text that made your blood boil, let it sit. That disrespect in the meeting, breathe before you speak. That backhanded comment, you don't owe it a single drop of your energy. Reacting is often emotional labor disguised as justice. It feels like action, but it rarely brings peace. It entangles you, it drains you, and sometimes it keeps you connected to the very thing you're trying to heal from. And let's not pretend it's easy. It's incredibly hard to bite your tongue when your ego's screaming, say something. But maturity teaches us this. Not every situation deserves our voice. Some only deserve our silence and distance. Because when you choose not to react, you're not avoiding the issue. You're asserting your self-control. You're showing that your emotional state is not at the mercy of someone else's dysfunction. You are no longer available for manipulation. You are no longer entertaining pettiness. You are no longer proving your worth through arguments. You are choosing your dignity over the drama. So the next time someone tries to bait you into chaos, remember, your reaction is a currency, and you don't owe everyone change. Reserve it for those who bring value, not those who stir confusion. Because in the end, the real flex is not showing them you care. It's showing yourself that you're no longer controlled by chaos. Reclaim that power, keep your peace, and watch how quickly the wrong people lose their grip on your life. Cutting someone off doesn't require chaos, it requires clarity. There's this myth we've been fed that endings have to be dramatic to be real. That in order for a separation to matter, it has to be loud, painful, chaotic, full of tears, shouting, broken friendships, and burned bridges. But that's not truth. It's trauma talking. The truth is, cutting someone off doesn't require an explosion, it requires intention. Not noise, not revenge, just quiet, anchored clarity. We've been conditioned to believe that in order to justify walking away, we have to make the other person see what they did wrong. We want them to understand our pain, acknowledge the harm, and feel the weight of our absence. But here's the hard part. Some people will never get it. And trying to make them understand only delays your healing. That's why clarity matters more than closure. Clarity is internal. It's that still, calm voice that says, this dynamic is not serving me. I've tried, I've tolerated, I've stretched beyond my limits, and now it's time to let go, with or without their permission. Cutting someone off isn't about bitterness. It's about boundaries. It's about choosing peace over proving a point. It's the act of saying, I no longer need this energy in my life without needing to convince anyone why. That kind of decision doesn't need a scene, it doesn't need a speech, it just needs you trusting your gut, honoring your truth, and taking action. And here's what's powerful about that. When you cut someone off from a place of calm self-awareness, not anger, not resentment, you walk away clean, you don't carry shame, you don't carry guilt, you carry your freedom. Because chaos might feel satisfying in the short term, but clarity is what sustains you in the long run. You don't have to throw grenades on your way out. You can leave the room quietly and still never return. And sometimes the loudest message you'll ever send is your silence, your absence, your decision not to play the game anymore. So in 2025, let's shift the narrative. Let's stop equating disconnection with drama. Let's start seeing peace as the most powerful closure there is, because cutting someone off doesn't require chaos. It just requires knowing you deserve better and being willing to act on that truth with quiet courage. Protecting your peace isn't rude, it's revolutionary. Let's dismantle something right now. You are not too much for protecting your peace. You are not selfish. You are not cold. You are not rude. You are awake. For too long, we've been taught that being a good person means being endlessly available, endlessly accommodating, endlessly forgiving, even when it's hurting us, especially when it's hurting us. But let's tell the truth. Peace is not passive. It's not this soft, fuzzy idea reserved for Sunday mornings and meditation retreats. Peace, real peace, is a discipline, a choice, a boundary, and choosing to protect it in a world that constantly tries to pull you into conflict, comparison, drama, and dysfunction. It's not rude. That's revolutionary. It's revolutionary to say, I'm not going to argue just to keep a connection. I'm not going to shrink just to make someone else comfortable. I'm not going to explain myself over and over to people who are committed to misunderstanding me. It's revolutionary to know that protecting your peace doesn't mean cutting off love. It means cutting off access to chaos. It's not about pushing people away. It's about not letting them push you past your limits. Because here's the thing. Every time you overextend yourself to avoid being rude, every time you swallow your truth to keep the room calm, every time you allow someone to disrespect you just to avoid conflict, to trade pieces of your peace until there's nothing left to give, that's not kindness, that's depletion. And it's a recipe for burnout, resentment, and self-abandonment. Protecting your peace looks like saying no without guilt. It looks like not responding to that text. It looks like staying home when your body says rest. It looks like letting someone be mad at you without rushing in to fix it. And yes, sometimes it'll be misunderstood. Some people will call you distant, difficult, cold. Let them, because the people who are healthiest for you will celebrate your boundaries and they will respect your space. They will not demand your exhaustion in exchange for connection. That we're no longer apologizing for choosing peace. We're no longer mistaking people-pleasing for compassion. We're no longer giving everyone the right to weigh in on our worth. Because here's the radical truth. When you protect your peace, you protect your power. And nothing is more revolutionary than a person who is no longer emotionally available for nonsense. So if you're choosing calm over chaos, stillness over drama, boundaries over burnout, you're not being rude. And you're being brave. You're being clear. You're being free. Healing doesn't need an audience. We live in a world that rewards visibility, where everything, our joy, our pain, our growth is expected to be broadcast, documented, and validated. We've been conditioned to believe that unless someone sees our healing, it doesn't count. Unless we share the process, the tears, the late night revelations, and morning breakthroughs, it must not be real. But healing is not a performance. It's not content. It's not a storyline for someone else's consumption. Healing is sacred, and it doesn't need an audience to be valid. The deepest transformations don't usually happen in the spotlight. They happen in quiet places, in early mornings and long nights, in stillness, in reflection, in those lonely private moments when you choose not to repeat the same old pattern, when no one's watching, no one's clapping, and no one's telling you good job. That's real healing. There is strength in telling your story. There's power in vulnerability. But there's also wisdom in knowing that not everything needs to be shared in real time. Some healing is too tender, too raw, too unfinished to be put on display. And that's okay. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is not post about your progress. Sometimes the most radical thing is to heal in silence, away from the need for applause or permission. Because when healing becomes a performance, we risk healing for the audience instead of for ourselves. We start curating our pain. We start filtering our truth. We become so focused on how others perceive our growth that we forget to ask, is this even true for me, or is it just what people expect me to say? Healing in private doesn't mean hiding. It means honoring your process without needing it to be palatable or polished. It means letting yourself fall apart and put the pieces back together without rushing to explain why you're not okay yet. It means giving yourself time, space, compassion. It means saying, I don't owe anyone a timeline. I don't owe anyone an update. I don't owe anyone access to my becoming, because you are allowed to grow quietly. You are allowed to grieve gently. You are allowed to evolve in peace. Healing is yours. And it becomes even more powerful when it's not about proving anything, but simply about reclaiming who you are, step by step, breath by breath. So no, your healing doesn't need an audience. It just needs your commitment, your courage, your truth. Let it be slow. Let it be silent. Let it be yours. In 2025, energy is currency. Spend it wisely. Let's start with something honest. Your energy is not unlimited. It's not a bottomless well. It's not something you can keep giving away without consequence. In 2025, we're not just talking about money anymore. We're talking about emotional economy. Time is precious, yes, but energy is sacred. Every thought you entertain, every conversation you engage in, every relationship you nurture, every boundary you enforce or ignore is either a deposit or a withdrawal. Your peace, your focus, your joy, they all come at a cost. So the question becomes, are you investing your energy or are you bleeding it out to things that no longer serve you? See, there are people who don't just take your time, they take your light. Situations that don't just delay your plans, they drain your spirit. And habits that don't just waste your days, they wear down your soul. And we've been doing it for too long. Entertaining, draining conversations out of politeness, engaging in arguments just to feel seen, pouring into people who only see us as a source, not a soul, saying yes when every cell in our body is screaming no. That's not strength. That's emotional bankruptcy. This year, we're not spending energy on things that offer no return. We're not writing essays to people committed to misunderstanding us. We're not attending every fight we're invited to. We're not over-explaining, over-giving, or overcompensating, because in 2025, energy is the new currency. Your attention is an investment. Your presence is a gift. Your peace is a premium asset. And your emotional bandwidth, that's your credit limit. Guard it like your life depends on it, because honestly, it does. Here's what spending energy wisely looks like. Choosing conversations that elevate, not agitate. Setting boundaries that protect, not punish. Resting before you're depleted, not after. Being selective with your yes and unapologetic with your no. Aligning your time and energy with your values, not your guilt. And let's be clear, it's not selfish. Sustainable, because you can't pour into your purpose when you're leaking energy from every unguarded place in your life. So be intentional, be discerning, spend your energy like it's your last dollar, because it just might be the difference between burnout and breakthrough. You don't owe your energy to everyone. You don't need to justify your boundary. You just need to remember, energy is currency. Spend it on peace, on purpose, and on people who pour back into you. That's how we move in 2025. Grounded, clear, powerful. Unbothered and unavailable for anything that drains us. And if there's one truth echoing through everything we've said, it's this: you don't need to explain your healing, you don't need to justify your silence, and you sure as hell don't need to set yourself on fire to keep anyone else warm. This year, we're not reacting, we're responding with intention. We're not clinging, we're releasing with grace. We're not chasing closure, we're choosing clarity. We are done handing over our energy like it's free. Done proving our worth through emotional labor. Done giving access to people who've already shown us they don't value the privilege of it. Because silence is not weakness, it's power. Distance is not petty, it's protection. And boundaries aren't walls. They're doors we choose to close so our peace can breathe again. The truth is, you're allowed to grow without noise. You're allowed to love people and still walk away. You're allowed to change, to outgrow, to walk in a new direction, even if no one claps for it. Cutting them off isn't cruelty. It's clarity. It's saying, I choose me, quietly, firmly. So protect your energy. Honor your evolution. And when the time comes, don't react. Just walk silently, boldly, unapologetically. Because your peace isn't up for negotiation anymore. That's your power now.